Melissa De La Rosa, Staff Sergeant, United States Air Force.
And where were you born?
In Rock Island, Illinois. My mom's name is Judith K. Carter, and my father's name is Leo De La Rosa. My mom was a very hardworking woman. She raised us all to be the same, very equal. She was a nurse, and she was raised based on our same values. She's very down-to-earth personality. She had a great sense of humor. She always raised us to be ourselves, being very personable. So that's one thing I always remembered about her. It keeps me going. He was, I think they were an opposite attract. He's more introverted, very quiet, but very, very hardworking. He always said everything he did was for the family. He put himself aside for all of us, which I have a big family. I'm the youngest of 5. My oldest brother is William Carter. And then my next brother is Leo Victor De La Rosa. My sister is Angela De La Rosa, and the next sister above me is Jessica De La Rosa.
And then it's you.
And then me. I was the shadow. That's what they called me. The shadow, because I was in my own world, but I was always there. They didn't ever hear much from me. I was like a little sponge. I watched and observed and learned everything from each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
As I got older into adolescence, I became more extroverted. I then started to become very outgoing, becoming who I was, learning who I was, and I think all of them played a big part in that, because I learned so much for them, whether it was what to do or what not to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I was still trying to find that. I think more so I became more mature being with my siblings. I always liked to hang out with older people. And my siblings were always letting me hang out with them, so I matured really fast. My mother always told me she saw me as the independent one, so she always told me that's a good quality. Go for it, make yourself more stable so that if anything falls apart, you always have something that you can fall back on. So she had raised me that. She had instilled that in me. As well as just being curious beyond the norm of, I had always was very stationary in my upbringing, so we didn't go beyond where I grew up. And just the curiosities of what is else beyond this area. So I was really curious. So I think my curiosities is what led me to want to expand my knowledge and move on from the area. Mm-hmm. What's funny is I did not have a desire much. I didn't know for sure, though my verbal skills, everyone told me I was very, very outspoken. Always still am, but they always told me go into the legal field, and I said, I just ignored them. And I guess with my brothers and my family in general, beyond my family, my entire family, I think the military started setting in. The desire of, well, what else is there to do, because I want to go to school, I want to travel. So that I was kind of not sure what to do. So I decided to join the military when I was 14. Yes, we're generations. I am the 3rd generation. As far as the families in Silvis, they were instilled to yearn more for life. What can you make more for your life and for your family? So seeing that in many of the families in Silvis, they encouraged to join the military. It I guess it wasn't more so directly at men. That was a lot of the perspective. Only because they instilled the woman, to maintain home life. And particularly in my family, yes, that was very important for the women to maintain home life while the men went out and worked. In my decision to join the military, I really got inspired by a lot of the men in the military, hearing their stories between the Vietnam War, the Korean War, my brothers joining, my brother being in the Gulf War. My brothers actually encouraged me. What the turn of events happened when I was 14 was my mother passed away. And I did not have a sense of direction at that point. Reality set in. And I said, okay, everyone's encouraging me to go into the legal field. And I was like, that's not a reality. Maybe not for me at that moment. I said, but there could be an opportunity one day. So, not long after she passed, I decided to join the military. I thought it was a good opportunity to get out of my environment, my zone, get a change of environment, get a different perspective, kind of start over for myself. So I thought, well, and then they provide good education, travel. Hey, what else do I have coming my way right now? So I did not tell, my brothers knew, because they're the ones that told me, what's going on with you, what's going on. Let's figure out, they kept kind of giving me the positive notes of the military. So I then later, my senior year, I then did share with the rest of my family. I had already dipped in. And I really wanted to make it happen. So I was going to go through the medical, the physical, because that was the next step in order to actually even go in. And my father was completely against it. He was like, no, go in the military. You're a woman. Go get married. Go have kids. Go have a family. And I said, no, I don't desire that right now. So he was mad at me. He didn't want to talk to me. And every time, as time went on, I told him, I kept reminding him, I am going. I'm not being rebellious. It's just, I really wanted to go. And I said, and if I don't go right after graduation, I don't know what direction I'll go. So him and I did have a friction between each other during that time. But come the day after I graduated, I left a few days right after, I told him I'm actually going. I have my stuff ready, and I need him to take me down to the reserve station. And he said, okay. So he took me. He dropped me off. He still couldn't believe it. So that was something of an experience. When I did come back for a visit, my uncles, my grandmother, I was really close to my grandmother, all of them couldn't believe it either. They're like, why? That's for a man. That's what, my grandma had told me. Women stay home. But I went anyway. 1997, June 2002. Maybe a calling, but it was instilled in us. Not necessarily directly, it was indirect, because I come from a family, not only family, but families, a group of families in Silvis where they instilled joining the military. So seeing my two older brothers join the military, seeing how it changed their life and experiences, I desired to. I went to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, my first time leaving home. It was nerve-wracking because, it was both. I think it was an exciting anxiety because I've never left home, never left alone. And then I was going to go somewhere new. So I was excited at the same time, but nervous because I was used to routine. We had such a structure, in our town. Everything. I mean, it was a slower lifestyle. So anything surprisingly new come in through our day was rare. Mm-hmm. So I think I was just, I really was excited. I looked forward to it. I was ready to make that, new chapter in my life. Mm-hmm. Vandenberg Air Force Base here in Santa Maria, Lompoc, California. Mm-hmm. Well, my first job that I was offered, I messed up on that one, so I messed that opportunity up. But my first job offered was Space Systems Operations. So basically we were monitoring anomalies for space launches. So I didn't pass tests. It was pretty challenging mentally. So, but then I moved on, and then I got a position with information management. So we did computers. I was information, IT, information technology. No, I was stationed there for 6 months. Then I moved on to Mississippi for the IT training. And I was only there for 3 months. And then I moved on and stationed in Okinawa, Japan for 3 years. Well, the good thing about the Air Force was that it was made up about, I'd say, 30 to 40% women. So it was pretty equal. But in Japan, there were differences. I like to really dive into the culture. So I like to make friendships with those locals everywhere I went. And so I did have a lot of local friends. The culture was very reserved. Actually, they were very artistic, very reserved, respectful. They were a very welcoming culture. I loved being there. When I was really in that direction, especially going into IT, that was still new, just interested in computers. So all the technology. So I thought, wow, this is a direction that not only can I go to school for, but I can learn on the job. So that was interesting for me, because I knew that regardless, either now, at the time, or later, this is a direction that we're all going to. So no matter what job I got, that would be a great skill. Yes, that event was sadly 9/11. I was stationed in Honduras at the time, and being there was a peace efforts task force. So it was Sotocano Army base, excuse me. It was an Army base, United States Army base, but it comprised of Air Force, Army, and Honduran Air Force personnel on the base. So it was a peace effort. So being there was we always maintained a calm environment. We lived right there, right in the barrios with all the other locals. So that was an interesting experience for me, because I got to meet establish in their culture. So during that time, 9/11 occurred. It was very quiet and very still. And then I recall another military member knocking on everyone's doors, and they're all hauling out TVs, because we didn't have much. We didn't have anything really. I mean, being on that base was we didn't have the up-to-date, equipment, technology. So they're pulling out TVs and they're plugging them in as we take them into the little hut offices and plugging it in, and this is what's going on. The Twin Towers got hit, and we are watching it, and we spent all day watching the coverage. Basically, what we heard from the higher chain of command was, right now everything is on a standstill, which is called then a stop loss. Stop loss means no one can get out of the military at all. Finally, after about 6 months of stop loss, they opened it up, but it was one MOS, one job at a time, and reviewing the records of who was scheduled to separate, who was scheduled to retire. If they were scheduled to retire, then they offered that opportunity for that job only. And how many jobs are there to go ahead and retire? And it was their option then to retire or extend and stay in. So we waited one MOS at a time.
Wow.
On when we could leave, and mine came up, and they said, oh, well, even though we're bringing it up now, it was a month prior to my deployment ending. Your opportunity has come, and you can move to another base, your base option. And I said, sure, I'm going to take it now. I'm going to LAX. So I actually chose LAX prior to going to my deployment. They offered that option. That's the good thing about the Air Force. With deployments, you got to actually put in input on where your next base following where to go. So I wanted to come here to Los Angeles Air Force Base, and the opportunity came, and I came back. Still being down there, it was still like you were in the dark, not knowing what was going on. I came back February of 2002, and I came back, and let's see, February. May, I was the next highest ranking in line, other than my chief. He was going to Afghanistan, and he told me, I'm going for a year. When I come back, you're next rank in line to go. And I said, I have a son. I was pregnant with my son at the time. And I said, I can't, what will I do? I'm having a son. And he said, well, not to sound like a coward, but my heart had changed.
Yeah.
I just thought, really? And he said, well, you'll have to make arrangements and stay with family, but you'll have to go when I return. And my heart changed. And I decided to go talk to separations and get out. It broadened my horizons. It just really opened my eyes, getting to go in every possible way. I got to learn so many different things, whether it's everyday life, whether it's education in a book, text, people that you meet. I think it's in I met a girl that had never met any other culture than her own.
Wow.
And she's from a little small town in Kentucky. So she was amazed to meet Mexicans and Cubans and African Americans, and that was her first time. And I thought, really? This still exists in the United States?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But just the diversity in every possible way. I appreciate it because I was raised in a diverse family, very welcoming to all diversities. So mixing and blending together, and that's what the United States is about. And it's sad to see so much still segregation. it saddens me. But the Air Force provided me, I think, with a wealth of knowledge that's made me more wise more than anything. It's just the appreciation of life in general.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Well, I am finished asking you questions, interrogating you. But if there's anything that I didn't cover, there's probably a lot. Is there anything that you would have liked to maybe say? You have the opportunity to say it right now.